Hey guys, it's Eric here with the ADCAST, and you know, like the old saying says, you gotta let go if you want to grow. So one thing we did was we actually let go of our old podcast, which was called Your Daily Development, and it morphed into what we call right now the ADCAST. I want you to take a listen, and I hope you enjoy. This is the ADCAST.
This podcast is brought to you in part by VIP Marketing and Advertising.
Wow, who would have thought that we'd have this much info? There is so much information here. We're going to have to make this a two-part episode, so stay tuned.
Welcome to Your Daily Development with your host, Eric Elliott.
You're running away from the future, man. You got to get caught up in the past. Welcome back to another episode of Your Daily Development, and I am pumped about today's show. I have a friend and a mentor joining us today. His name is Mr. Jim Doyle of Jim Doyle and Associates. I actually go way back with Jim from my broadcast years, but just a little bit about Jim and Jim Doyle and Associates. They are a national sales training and marketing consulting firm. Jim has partnered with broadcast stations and cable companies across the country, and I think you'll get a lot out of today's episode. So let's welcome Jim Doyle. Today, I'm so excited to have a guy who's just world famous in our industry. He's a mentor, just a great industry veteran when it comes to broadcast television, advertising, you name it. I have on the line with us today, Mr. Jim Doyle of Jim Doyle and Associates. Jim, thanks for being with us today, man.
Man, my privilege. Although when they say I'm a veteran, I'm just thinking, man, that means he's old.
No, just a lot of experience, right?
Oh, yeah, okay. Let's hope.
Just to the listeners, I'll tell the listeners just a little bit about how I know Jim, from my television days. I actually worked for a CBS affiliate more than 8 years ago, and I had the pleasure of meeting Jim and some of his associates when they work with our local television station. And, Jim was just beyond just, some other consultant coming in town with a briefcase. You left us with some knowledge, and you left us, especially me, you left me with some things that I'll always remember. And some of those things we'll talk about today. So I'm glad you're here. I think it's going to be awesome. And I just want to give our listeners all we can of Jim Doyle and Associates today for their daily development. So thank you again, Jim.
Oh, thank you.
One of the things I want to kind of jump right in, Jim, is that stuck with me for the longest time was the theory of the glasses. And I've seen you demonstrate this before. And even today, I still tell clients, about the theory of the glasses. And it's almost a simplified way of explaining not trying to spray and pray and not trying to do too much. And I bet it's really important now to go along with the theory of the glasses, especially in today's media, the way media is now today.
Yeah, I think that that principle, and we now call it a principle because it's been proven literally by tens of thousands of businesses around the country in the last 15 years since we've been sharing it, is that it's really a great way to describe how important frequency is in advertising. Frequency is not the number of spots a client buys. It's the number of times that your business's message reached me if I'm a core prospect. And it's so unbelievably important in the bombardment of ad messages. It's really how we get above the noise. And the way that we describe it is we'll say that it's like pouring water into a glass. And what's a glass? It's any separate place that a business would advertise. So radio's not a glass. Each radio station is a glass, and cable's not a glass. Each separate network is a glass, and none of them are bad. I mean, everybody's got somebody who watches, listens, reads. But what happens is I pick a glass. As I pour water in, my level of awareness goes up and goes up and goes up. And at some point, the glass overflows, and that's when I see impact. And the biggest single mistake, our company will meet with 5,000 businesses this year around America. And I will tell you, the single biggest mistake we see people make with their media allocation of their traditional advertising money is they're trying to spread it and put it in too many glasses. They do a little here, little here, little here, and little here. And so the way to get dramatically more results is reduce back the number of places you advertise and dominate the places you pick. So that's the principle of the glasses. It's almost like go big or don't go. Advertise in fewer places, but dominate the places in order to understand how important frequency is today.
I do understand that. You remember, I don't know who actually made this law about, you need a 3.0 frequency to be successful because it takes clients, or it takes a potential client 3 times to hear your message before they react to it. But in this day and age when there's radio, TV, billboard, direct mail, there's internet, social media, the 3 frequency doesn't seem like it works anymore. And with our attention span, does it take more than that for someone to pull the trigger?
That's a great question. I mean, absolutely. I think whoever designed that, and I was sort of learned in the same school, I guess, that was a time when there was just a fraction of the bombardment that we have today. We're the most over-communicated society in history. And when you add all the things you mentioned and then add the emails that we get a day, some, for business and others for advertising, we're bombarded by messages. And the only way to stand out is to get above the noise. Well, there's 2 ways to get above the noise. I can spend more money, but I don't know about the folks who are listening to this, but for most of us, that's not a realistic option. The only other way I can get above the noise is to reduce the number of people I reach slightly, take the reach number down, reach fewer people, but reach them more and more often. And the results on that are spectacular. We have literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of case histories, examples, testimonials, videos of clients who have done that and seen a fairly dramatic increase in their business without having to spend any more money, which is super cool.
Well, how does the attention span come into play now? I'm one of those people. I'm super impatient. And I think anyone who's got to catch a plane or they have to get into a meeting, they're super impatient. Now it seems like 1 minute is just too long. So, I've had people show me videos before, like on their cell phone, and before you know it, I'm tapping the screen to see how much longer I have to view that video. So I wonder how much does attention span, come into play. It just seems like it's gotten harder for people to be relevant, for business owners to be relevant, right?
I think it's a great insight. I'm similar to you. I sort of feel like, they say you're a type A person if you ever find yourself standing at the microwave oven going, come on, I don't have all minute. And,
exactly.
And I think we're all that way. I think so what happens? How do you break through that? I think the piece of the glasses is one piece of that, but you've got to have absolute clarity of message. I think one of the mistakes that we see businesses make all over the country is in their creative, they try to fight too many fights. They try to do too many things. They try to position themselves in too many different playgrounds. And we've become big advocates since you and I met of something we call a singular point of attack, which is really saying, what is the fight I've got to win? What is the fight that's going to help my business go up to the next level? I'll give you a quick example. And I know, we talk a lot about there's riches and niches and how important it is to not be all things to all people unless you're the market leader.
Right.
And, here's an example of that. In the rental car category, for 25 years in America, Hertz and Avis dominated.
Right.
Old ad campaign, Hertz was number 1 and Avis was number 2, and they tried harder. Well, all of a sudden, a new company comes along about 20 years ago and realizes that category in the customer's brain is jammed, just slammed. Don't need to know the names of 5 rental car companies. I don't need to know the names of 5 personal injury lawyers. And if you're not one of the top 2 or 3, what you have to do is invent a new category and find a way to get customers to think about your business in a slightly different way. So what did Enterprise do? Enterprise became the company for local people. We'll bring it to you. Rather than be another rental car company, they became something different. A personal injury lawyer in Buffalo practices personal injury law, but goes to the market as we sue drunk drivers. A chiropractor in a small town in Illinois realizes that 70% of his customers, the first time they come in for lower back pain. So he stops being the chiropractor talking about everything he does and focuses completely and totally on that point of entry of lower back pain. But once you do that, and let me just extend that for just 10 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once you do that, and you have ultimate clarity of message, that helps you break through the noise. If I'm the fifth rental car company in a brain that doesn't need to know two rental car companies, that's a tune-out thing. So it's frequency in the glasses, but it's also absolute clarity of message that I think helps address some of that ADD, attention span issue that you and I have in a bunch.
You don't need a marketing agency. You do deserve very important placement. VIP Marketing and Advertising is a cutting-edge strategic digital, creative, media, and marketing partner that provides services for businesses of all sizes. To stay up to date on the latest marketing news, subscribe for email updates at veryimportantplacement.com.
Yeah. You know, we tell a lot of our clients, and we lead our performance calls with clients on those three categories: budget, media, and message. And I think if we stick to those, you know, we have a better chance of being successful. It's funny that you just said that. Go ahead, Jim.
I think there's a line there just to layer into that, which is one of the things that businesses need to realize is the scarcer their resources, the more narrow should be their focus.
Right.
So intuitively, we want to throw a lot against the wall and see what sticks, but you just can't out Walmart or out McDonald's. So if you're competing against bigger players, you got to be White Castle, you know, square deep hamburgers,
right.
You know, and that's the only way you're going to win. And I guess that also helps you with some clarity of message.
Yeah, it does. You know, I'm going to go back to what you just said about the whole conversation about riches and niches. I tell you, just from meeting you some years ago, some of these things are kind of they're tattooed on my brain almost, you know. The same, it kind of applies to our business too, my business in ad agencies, where you have to kind of niche down. You can't. One thing you've always said is you can't be all things to all people. You wind up being nothing to no one. You know, so the same is almost applied in our business as well. You know, when we're talking to clients as well, and you know, for our own development, you know, our clients, they all specialize in something, but we don't specialize in anything. A lot of agencies don't. You know.
I think that, you know, it's funny you say that. So I would speak, and you know, I spoke in, you know, probably 200 towns around America doing my marketing workshop, and Tom Ray and our company does that today. And ad agencies would always come, and I think half the reason they came was they were scared of what I was going to say to their clients. wanted to protect anything I screwed up immediately. So they come for that reason, and you know, about midway through, they would realize exactly what you just said, that what I was talking about absolutely applied to their business as well.
No, I totally agree.
I think if that, and today, especially with technology, if you've got a particular expertise, I know your agency does a fair amount with personal injury lawyers, or with you know, you've done some work with lawyers. What prohibits you from doing that work with somebody in Charleston, West Virginia, or in Spokane, Washington? Because you can develop an expertise that is so significant to make a difference for those clients. So I think that's a real good insight.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to ask you this about hopefully my favorite medium and your favorite medium. Just in the world of television, how does it remain relevant? You know, it's all about the content now, and for television, their content is their programs. You know, but you don't see shows like MASH or The Cosby Show hang around for 14, 15 years, or like Seinfeld or Friends anymore. I mean, it's 2-3 seasons, and sometimes these shows are out. So how does television remain relevant in today?
Unless you're American Idol and you've been on for like 15 years. You know, I think, you know, how does any business remain relevant? I think we, as consultants, you as an ad agency, television broadcasters, remain relevant by continuing to serve customers, even if the service to customers has to change. My son sits in the newsroom of one of the TV stations in Orlando, and his job is the digital content editor. And so he is taking all of the content that comes into the newsroom and putting it out on different platforms. And Orlando's not the biggest market in the country, but it's certainly not the smallest. They've got 5 million sessions, Eric, a month, and 15 million page views. So that's a relevant brand. That's a brand that's still really, really relevant. But I want to challenge a little bit of the inference behind the question. I think television is still increasingly and incredibly relevant when it is done correctly. And
I agree.
Correctly is way different. Correct is way different than it might have been a decade ago, and hugely different than it was 20 or 25 years ago. But it's done correctly. And now, is it challenging to reach millennials on broadcast TV today? Absolutely. But in terms of looking at opportunities, I have a friend who says there are three things that'll never die: cockroaches, Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones, and TV. I think we're going to be around for a very, very, very long time. But advertisers and those of us who help them are going to have to do a better job with some of the things we've already talked about. Message is going to become so much more important. If I reach less people, and look, every media today reaches less people than it did 20 years ago.
I agree.
Well, if it's budget media message, then my message has got to be so much better. I noticed in the last year, I think you started a production company, not just to help your agency clients, but to help other businesses. And that's relevant because that piece of it is more important than it's ever been before. But I think we can still, I'm blessed to sit in a situation where I see, as we travel in 85 markets around the country, we'll work with businesses this year. The collection of success stories that flows into our office at any given week says to me, television is a long way from being irrelevant.
No, I do agree with you. You have to do it right. But one word that you said earlier was that we give them help, and that's one thing that we always tell our team is we sell help. We don't sell service. You sell help. I was going to ask you this question. I mean, I love television. I'm a fan of television too. But how much do you think social media has changed, not just television, but all media?
Doesn't it change everything? I saw a great piece last week. Somebody sent me that talked about how Facebook now owns birthdays.
Oh, wow.
And my birthday was last week, and I probably got more birthday greetings in a day than I have probably gotten in my entire life up till that point. If you think about it, you get 300 or 400 people sending you birthday wishes, and God, that would exceed my life up to that point. So is social media having an impact? Absolutely. I have only X amount of hours a day. So if I'm engaged on social media for some period of time, that's obviously going to, it's a zero-sum game. I don't have X amount of time. But what's challenging to me is trying to take that level of engagement from all these varieties of different social media patterns, from Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, which I think is the 800-pound gorilla, certainly for older folks, and then translating that into advertiser success. And that's where I struggle a little bit. And I'm a big fan of some of the digital tools that are out there, massive fan, love it. But I challenge a little bit on Facebook on how do you get results.
That's a good question. I mean, that's a good insight right there. Very good insight.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that concerns me, and up until a year ago, I owned a TV station, and we'd owned 8, Rick Gorman and I, over the few years, and so we had 2 out in California, and we're spending all this time saying to our audience, like us on Facebook, like us on Facebook. Well, of course, as you know, Eric, now at some point, Facebook now charges me to talk to my own people. And as you know, every time they want to raise their price, raise their revenue, they'll charge me more. And so I can't engage with my own audience now. Now, that's separate from display advertising, doing some of the cool things that you can do on Facebook. But I really, there's one thing to have engagement, and there's the other thing to figure out how to make it work. And the key thing for an advertiser is, how do I get results?
You talk to people across the country, Jim. You talk to TV stations. You talk to business owners, advertisers across the country. How would you advise them on how to measure their results? Because I know there's a lot of business owners that have never set up KPIs or key performance indicators before they launch a campaign. They just say, oh, I spent $20,000 and this didn't work, or I spent $10,000, this didn't work. How would you advise them to measure success or even know what success looks like?
Well, probably like you, I've been in dozens, if not hundreds, of those kinds of conversations, and I have three answers. One of them is very ambiguous and probably maybe even too vague, but obviously, I want to see cash register impact. I want to see sales growth, and if that doesn't mean that every piece of my advertising program is right, but if I'm seeing sales growth, obviously some growth, that's a good indicator. But let's take that to a deeper level. Ideally, it's difficult sometimes to take some traditional media and say, how did that lead to growth? Mm-hmm. I am a massive believer in understanding market share. If I look at sales tax receipts on the State Department of Taxation website for home furnishing, and they were in the last quarter up 3%, meaning that 3% more sales tax was collected from furniture retailers, and my furniture store is +5%. That says I've grown market share.
Absolutely.
If there's 100 Fords sold in Charleston, and I've moved over a period of time from 23 Fords in a month sold to 30 in a month sold, that means I'm growing market share. And ultimately, market share growth is the strongest indication of the success of a business program, way more of a powerful indication than clicks or how many people went through. Ultimately, how many people go through your site is only relevant to the point that leads to sales.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am I'm a relentless believer in looking at market share, because if let's say I've had 100 click-throughs and they converted at some number, but my sales compared to my competitor in my brand or in my category are down or not growing as fast, that's not a successful advertising campaign. And I think that's one of the fallacies, one of the sort of things that we ought to be cautious of as we have this conversation about the specifics of what analytics. Now, I love the analytics. We have a client out in a market in the West, and they're looking at the correlation between when a TV ad runs and showing a client using their own Google Analytics that they actually had the increase in the web hits that occurred in the next 24 hours after that TV ad ran. Mm-hmm. And then comparing that to a week later when the schedule dropped down by 20%, but the reach out to the hits to the website dropped by 40%. That kind of use of analytics, I think, will be increasingly one of the currencies of the realm. But I would never want a business to not look at market share. I think that's a huge mistake, because you can be led to think you're doing good when you're not.
I agree. I think one of the issues that I've seen is that advertisers make each medium work against one another instead of working along with one another for a single campaign.
Well, yeah, we had Tom Ray has developed this word that we are strong believers in called tradigital. And tradigital is the marriage of digital and traditional media. There is this sense that it's digital versus traditional, and boy, if you followed us around the country and saw all of the success stories we're involved in, it's digital plus traditional plus digital. A TV cam with a geofencing element, a TV campaign with a retargeting element. Look, when an ad works today, people pick up a device, and so every business today has got to have a pick up the device strategy. So you can't be in business without a pick up the device strategy that targets and retargets that kind of stuff. But that doesn't take away from the fact that, one of the biggest drivers, we'll have car dealer after car dealer after car dealer who say the minute they go on TV or radio or media, they can see the increase in their web traffic instantly. That's the marriage. It's not either or, it's both and.
What's interesting was there was an NADA conference that was in January and in New Orleans, and one of the things that came up was dealership web traffic. 80%, nearly 80% of the actions or even the web traffic to the dealers' websites come from mobile phones. Just interesting.
Yeah, no question.
Just interesting. Very interesting.
In fact, it's interesting. The fastest growing area of traffic for car dealerships, to your point, is dealership in-person ups on a lot are down. Web ups are down, but phone ups are up substantially, and it's all because of click to call.
Yeah.
Right off of a mobile platform, clicking to call. So yeah. Change. It's really interesting. If you think about one of the ramifications about that, I talked about it a little bit, is so if my point of access to a car dealership is now a phone or a web interaction, someone who's 30 miles outside of Charleston does not have to have the $1 million lot that was so critically important, that $1 million location that somebody would have in North Charleston or Charleston. I can compete with that Charleston dealer from 30 miles away by an effective media campaign without making the real estate investment.
No, I have seen it. We've done it ourselves. I agree.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, it's really fun. So
Tom Ray said, is it Tom Ray?
Yes,
yeah.
Tom. Yeah.
Tom, I watched some of the videos that you guys had. It was just awesome. And one thing he said was, branding is out and results are in.
If I spend a lot of money to create a brand, but my sales go up, but my sales don't go up, that is not a strategy that's going to work for a long-term client. For a business, the kind of businesses that you and I work with, which are, for the most part, locally owned or regional chains, but smaller businesses. I mean, look, Starbucks has a brand. The baristas wear the same clothes. The look of the location is the same. I can go to a Starbucks in Sedona, Arizona, where I live now, or one in Charleston, and they're going to look roughly the same. That creates a brand for Starbucks. But if I'm Joe's Coffee Shop in downtown Charleston, I can't spend the kind of money that Starbucks can spend. I can't out Starbucks to create a brand. What I can do is drive people to come in between 6 and 9 o'clock this morning. And I really want to be focused on that. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't, in many ways build a brand. As you know, one of the things we believe in is that if I'm not the dominant Ford dealer or Chevy dealer, one of the ways I can attack is to be the F-150 guy.
You don't need a marketing agency. You do deserve very important placement. VIP Marketing and Advertising is a cutting-edge strategic digital, creative, media, and marketing partner that provides services for businesses of all sizes. To stay up to date on the latest marketing news, subscribe for email updates at veryimportantplacement.com.
One of the ways I can attack is to be the F-150 guy.
Yep.
Well, that's a brand if I do it over a period of time. That Joe Jones Ford sells F-150s for less can be a brand. But this idea of Joe Jones Ford spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to tell me what a wonderful place they are to do business, and that their kids are, their people coach Little League and that they're good people and they go to church too, I'm not sure that's going to have an impact on sales that will ultimately have them feel good about that money.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. A lot of folks, let's just say Charleston is on an average 69, 70 people moving to Charleston a day. So some of the heritage doesn't really matter. Or does it?
I don't think it does as much. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it does as much. I don't think that's just Charleston. I think people I had a friend of mine, a really smart business guy, one of my powerful teachers, furniture guy in Rochester, New York, and I used to give him crap all the time about the fact that he had a sale every day. And it's like every they had the January sale followed by the early January sale, followed by the Martin Luther King's birthday sale, followed by the late. It just went on and on and on. And I said, don't they get it? And one day he was saying, it's interesting. People say to researchers, there's too many sales. They don't want a sale. And they hold on to that idea fervently and passionately until the minute at which they want to buy something.
You're right.
And then at that point, what do they want? Do they want a sale? And so I think, to your point, it's not just that people are moving in a market like Charleston. That's substantial and significant. But I think in every place, people want to know why this is a good time to buy and that they're going to get a good opportunity. And I think we can get a little bit too carried away on branding. Now, look, if your branding is increasing your market share, then hallelujah, keep going.
No, I agree with you 100%. 100%. Jim, let me kind of, I guess, go into a little bit of a lightning round here and just kind of ask you. I'll present the media.
The lightning round assumes that I have lightning answers.
Well, that's okay. You can take your time to answer these, all right? So, like, if I give you a medium, you tell me, you sum up that medium for me. Like, if I say radio, you tell me what you think about that medium, where it is now, and where it's going.
Okay.
Radio.
I used to own radio stations. I love the radio business. I think music radio is unbelievably challenged to get results because people are self-programming their own radio now. And I might get sports news talk a little bit better results. Religious, Hispanic, African-American stations may get a little bit more results. General music stations, very tough to get the frequency that drives results.
Internet radio, such as Pandora, iHeartRadio.
Some concerns about the measurement.
Billboard advertising.
Terrific for short messages. Most billboards get screwed up by trying to do too much. Burger King Next Exit, probably one of the most effective ads you'll ever have.
Social media.
I think that I'm going to have a social media piece of my program, but I'm going to try to be as militant as I can about looking at results.
The internet.
Well, that's like asking about the universe. What is the internet? Believe everything. That's what I want to say. Believe everything you read on the internet.
I believe everything on the internet. I love it.
Yeah. I think there are so many cool things that can go on now with digital. I just heard about a hospital in Pennsylvania who's struggling to recruit nurses. They found out that their best sources for nurses are disgruntled third shift nurses at other hospitals. Wow. So they built a geofence around the other hospitals and only activated it at 11 o'clock at night till 3 o'clock in the morning. And with basically, are you tired of your current nursing job? Click here.
That's smart.
Is so cool to me. The idea that I can, we had a BMW dealer in San Diego, Eric, who said to us, today I go hunting with a rifle and a shotgun. So a shotgun might be mass media's ability to reach a lot of people, including even some social media's ability to reach a lot of people. The rifle is, how do I get the right person? How do I get them and perhaps re-get them once they visited my site? Very good.
Very good. Television.
Has to be used differently than it was before, but still the most powerful way to get on a map, especially for anybody over the age of 45.
Jim, it's always a pleasure, man, just to talk to you and get your insights, man. For the listeners out there that want to learn more about Jim Doyle and Associates, where would you tell them to go and how would they find you?
If they've got questions about anything we shared today, it's always a privilege to reach out. And my personal email is jim@jimdoyle.com. And jimdoyle.com is where you find out everything about us.
Jim, I thank you so much. And to our listeners out there, thank you for your time. We want to just tell you thank you. And please rate us. A 1-star is cool, but a 5-star is even better. Jim, thank you for your time.
All right. Hey, thank you so very much. And Eric, that was a blast. Enjoyed it. Good to get reconnected with you.
All right, Jim. Thank you. You too, man.
Thank you for the folks who listen to the ADCAST and for people giving us their most valuable asset, which is their time. That's the one thing that money cannot buy. If you feel this podcast has been great and it's been a help to you, I'd like for you guys to be able to share it, tell your friends about it, and also share it on social media as well. And like we mentioned in the beginning of the show, you can listen to us anywhere. Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Stitcher. You can also watch this podcast on YouTube. And I want to thank our guest again. But to catch up on past episodes, go to veryimportantplacement.com or follow us at VIP Marketing 1. This has been the ADCAST.